Steven's Sausage Roll is a game that can be summed up in few words, but can only be truly experienced by playing it. It is not a game that will appeal to everyone. In this video, I will help you decide if this game is for you and provide a personal analysis after a spoiler warning. Steven's Sausage Roll is a hardcore puzzle game that is best experienced blind. Because of this, I will not be showing any puzzle solutions or late-game puzzles in this first section to avoid spoilers. Hopefully, this overview will help you decide if this game is for you. Steven's Sausage Roll is a puzzle game. There's not much else here to chew on. The graphics are simple but effective, the music is minimal and ambient, the story exists almost as a parody of itself. If you are interested in a game with a strong narrative, immersive visuals, a deep philosophical message, high-octane action, or just a casual game that you play mindlessly, this game is not for you. If you want a puzzle game that will challenge you at every turn, with puzzle concepts that are fully explored but don't overstay their welcome, I highly recommend Steven's Sausage Roll. It is perhaps the deepest, most challenging puzzle game I have ever experienced. Steven's Sausage Roll is a Sokoban-style puzzle game, with emphasis on logical solutions rather than finding the correct order of actions. The goal of each puzzle is simple: cook the sausages evenly and return to your starting place. However, it's evident from the moment you start playing that this game is focused on providing a deep, challenging puzzle experience. Your character has tank-like controls, making him awkward to control at first. With time, you will realize the depth this moveset allows. It gives you several options when it comes to manipulating sausages. You can roll sausages, push sausages, and much more as the game progresses. The puzzles in Steven's Sausage Roll pull no punches. There are no levels where all you have to do is perform a basic task. Each level is a fully realized puzzle, even the ones that exist primarily to teach you a new mechanic. You will be challenged from the very beginning and for the entire game. The puzzles never repeat themselves. You won't have a puzzle that is just an upscaled version of an earlier puzzle. Each puzzle has its own complete logic, which is particularly impressive considering the game's length. I took roughly 40 hours to complete Steven's Sausage Roll. I imagine some people will take more time, some less time. Regardless, there is a large amount of puzzles that are guaranteed to keep you engaged for the entire length of the game. It is well worth the price of admission. The graphics are simple but effective. The flat colors and simple textures make it easy to decipher what is happening on screen. The easily identifiable grid helps with navigation and sausage manipulation. The music is simple as well. It is composed of ambient, almost random notes that create a nice environment for thinking. You can also mess around with the music by pressing the spacebar, which is kind of fun. If you like what you see so far, I recommend stopping the video and checking out Steven's Sausage Roll. You can purchase it from the developer's website, which I will link in the description. It is also available on Steam and Humble Bundle, but I recommend purchasing it directly from the developer, as he will receive a larger cut and you get a DRM-free copy of the game. I will now be entering spoiler territory. I will be showing and talking about puzzles late in the game. Leave the video now if you wish to play Steven's Sausage Roll blind. I will now be analyzing and critiquing Steven's Sausage Roll as a full and complete package. Let's start with what was not so great about the game. There is a huge spike in difficulty with a handful of puzzles. The most extreme example is the tower. This puzzle is incredibly hard, and must be completed before moving on to the second world. Part of the reason why this puzzle is so hard is that it introduces a new mechanic in a somewhat confusing way. Earlier, I praised the game for not having any simple puzzles, but the tower introduces stacked sausages in an environment that has far too many variables for new players to easily understand what is going on here. I would not be surprised if many players look up walkthroughs or quit because of this level. Which is unfortunate because the next few levels are not nearly as hard, and they even present stacked sausages in an easier to understand way than the tower. A solution to this could be to make the level optional, or place it later in the game. Making the tower optional would break the current design flow of the game, so I think placing it later in the game is a more appropriate solution. The tower is a really good puzzle, possibly one of the best in the game, but it is encountered early by players that are unprepared for the mechanics and intimidated by the length of the puzzle. This brings down the whole flow of the first world and has likely discouraged many players. Moving on. The final true puzzle in the game, God Tower, is an annoying one. It's clever for the first little bit while you figure it out, but once you discover the solution, you have to repeat it around 10 times. It's an outlier. None of the other puzzles are like this. This is the only puzzle in the entire game I consider to be poorly designed, so it's a shame that it's the last one. It's possible that this was done to build suspense, but if it was, I didn't feel it at all. It's hard to be in suspense when the meat of the game is the actual puzzles, not what's waiting at the end. Speaking of the end, I was personally disappointed with the ending sequence. When all of the grills turned on, I thought I was going to have to bring the final sausage all the way to the beginning uncooked. I was expecting an incredible ending masterpiece of level and world design. I was preparing for the epic final puzzle of Steven's sausage roll. In reality, the final sequence just involves you cooking the Segway sausages that brought you between worlds. It's cool to walk through all the empty levels you finished, but that's really all there is to it. Perhaps I'm the only one with this criticism. I won't count it against the game because it's probably way too ambitious to actually achieve, and I'm likely the only person who thought of this. However, I can't help but feel there was a missed opportunity here. Let's move on to what is great about Steven's sausage roll. There is a lot of really good puzzles here. I pointed out the only two that I thought had major flaws. Every other puzzle in this game is challenging and engaging. This is due, in part, to the progression you make in the game. There are visual styles to each world. First is a grassy beach, then it's a snowy tundra, then it's an exotic red place thing. These visual changes are a great way to give you a feeling of progression and ease the eyes from staring at the same environment the entire time. The visuals aren't the only thing that progress. The complexity of the puzzles is constantly increasing, and this is fueled by new mechanics that you learn throughout Steven's sausage roll. You start by only pushing and rolling sausages. Later you stab sausages, stack sausages, stand on top of sausages, detach your fork by riding sausages, move platforms with sausages, and more. All of these mechanics have tons of little nuances. When a sausage is on top of you, you can rotate it by turning, but if it's only standing on your fork, turning will make it fall. Two sausages stacked on top of each other parallel will roll together, but if sausages are stacked perpendicular, they will be rolled off when pushed, except when you're standing under it. That's just a taste of how deep the moveset is in this game. You don't learn any new moves, it's still just the basic turning and walking. But there are so many little things to discover and master, you'll be learning new ways to cook sausages through the entire game. The branching style of the overworld is also fantastic. It is split into worlds with roughly 15 puzzles each. You must complete every puzzle in a world to move on to the next one, but you can tackle the puzzles in any order you choose. This approach works very well in puzzle games. If you are totally stumped by a level, you can leave and come back after completing other puzzles. However, near the end of each world, I always felt that I became trapped by 3 or 4 puzzles that seemed impossible. I found this actually works to the game's benefit. Some puzzles seem unsolvable when you first enter them, but when you're cornered and have no other puzzles to distract you, you must find the solution. And the solution to some of these puzzles are brilliant. The game never breaks its logic, but it sure pushes it to the limit. The puzzles are incredibly varied because of this tendency to push the rules. One puzzle has you stabbing a sausage by pushing it against your detached fork. Before this puzzle, I had no idea you could even do that, but it makes sense within the game's logic. There is another puzzle that forces you to step onto a grill, an action that is normally useless. There is one puzzle where you essentially build the level around the sausage, or manipulate the sausages from afar using statues, or ride the sausages over a pitfall grid to reach the grills. Through all of this, the game never breaks its logic, not once. This is impressive from a technical standpoint and builds trust in the player. You can always count on an action doing a specific thing regardless of the puzzle you're in. And a little side note, there are also these lore tablets scattered through the game. I found them hilarious. They start with vague philosophical musings, but slowly turn into a tale about a tribe of people turning into sausages. I felt these were all presented somewhat humorously. Steven's Sausage Roll isn't a game with a large story component, and it almost felt like a parody of itself. I appreciate the extra effort that went into making these. In conclusion, Steven's Sausage Roll is the most challenging, engaging, deep, and enjoyable puzzle game I have ever played. I give it an 8.5 out of 10.